Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Topics, a program of the Creative Coast, during which we feature business experts who have a wealth of knowledge to share with Coastal Georgia's innovative and startup community. If you're not familiar with the Creative Coast, you can find us at www.thecreativecoast.org. And we exist to nurture and catalyze the startup and innovative economy in Savannah and surrounding areas. Basically, what we do is we provide a number of educational programs like Lunchtime Topics to the community, as well as conferences, and we connect individuals and promote startups in the area to help them grow their business and to help grow the innovative workforce in Savannah. So welcome if this is your first time here. Today, our business expert who we have on the line, we're so excited to have Teia Acker. She is a resilient businesswoman, author, and a media personality who relentlessly balances various aspects of entrepreneurship, motherhood, and godly living. She serves as a motivational speaker on various platforms, which include her podcast, which is #GetNoticed. And she also is on a radio show or hosts a radio show called Resilient Living, which is based out of Houston. She's the founder of Resilient Magazine. And her mantra, Teia Acker Resilient, is what helped her get through a tough 2013 and led her to run a business based on the word resiliency. She knows all about it and can tell you about it. And so that is what she's here to talk about today: resiliency, becoming resilient, specifically understanding the significance of being resilient in a world of uncertainty. And I think after 2020, we can all relate to having to be resilient in a world of uncertainty. And she's going to talk specifically how you pick yourself back up and get back up on the horse and keep going. So, Teia, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you to start.
Hello, everybody. I know you're on mute, but I can feel your hellos back. And I'm so glad that it's all women, because in my head, I was trying to tailor what I would say if a guy was on here, because men are resilient too, but I can only speak to the premise of being a female, and we are resilient, not just myself, but we all are. And if 2020 has not taught us anything, it has taught us how to be resilient. The definition of being resilient means to simply bounce back from something that could have taken you out. And so if you could close your eyes for a moment and think about the one thing that you thought would take you out. And when I say take you out, everything doesn't mean in death. So I'm not just referring to sickness, although that could be one of the things, but I'm just referring to life. Like you wanted to start a business, or you wanted to move to a different city, or you wanted to try and pitch a new idea, anything that you thought about doing that for some reason something came in your path to deter you from doing it. That's what I'm going to talk to you about today: becoming resilient. You really already are. So I'm going to shift that narrative for a minute. And instead of saying becoming resilient, I'm going to say being resilient, because being is the current state. And every day that you wake up, you are resilient. You have something that you're going to face. I tell people all the time, every morning when I wake up, I put on my boxing gloves, and it's not to physically fight, but it is to take on whatever the day brings. Even after you say your prayers, even after you've done your morning routine, when you walk out your door, something is going to face you that day, and you have to be prepared to fight it. And when you make it back to your side of the corner in that boxing ring, you've won. Whether you're beaten up, abused, or bruised, or shaken, torn, you've still won, because you're actually looking at that versus it looking at you. I wanted you to think about the word resilient. We know the definition. Webster has defined it for years. We've heard the word for years. I was just sharing that in the inauguration, the word resilient was used 116 times. We've heard the word resilient so many times in 2020 until I can no longer take ownership of it. I'm developing a brand of it, but I cannot take ownership of the word resilient because it exudes in every last one of us. But I want you to think about the word itself and the letters that are in there. And that is what's going to sustain you in being resilient. And like I said, it says becoming resilient, but you had to become resilient in order to enjoy this lunchtime. So now that you're here, we're going to be resilient. And the first letter I want you to think about is the letter R. It's first for a reason, because in order for you to be resilient, you have to be ready. And when I say ready, you have to be ready to take on whatever it is that could come in your way to keep you from being successful. You have to be ready to face the challenges that many have said, oh, that's impossible. It won't happen. It won't do this. You won't do that. Trust me. I'm looking at single mothers on here. I'm looking at women who have lost something significant, whether it be a child, a parent, etc. I'm looking at women who have taken a back seat to men, even though they're more qualified to do exactly what those men are doing, or have gotten equal or less pay. So you have to be ready to face that. Being resilient means that you can walk outside in the middle of a storm and walk towards it versus running from it. So you want to make sure you're ready. The first E is being eager. We always hear people saying, you know, I want to do this, or I want to start this, but are you really eager to do it? Eager to learn and eager to anticipate something means that whatever it takes, you're going to invest in it. You're going to do it. You're going to put your best foot forward, regardless of whether you're 1 year in business or 20 years in business. The eagerness and the desire to learn something new, to do something new is what it is. And even if you don't desire to be in business, being resilient is not about being an entrepreneur. That's just something that I do. But being resilient means that you are eager to embrace whatever obstacles come, because they're going to come. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm here and nothing happens. Something happened 20 minutes ago. But when I got on here, I was determined to give you the message that I had. And that's because I'm eager for everyone else to become just as resilient as I feel that I am. The S is for studying. When I say study, and you can apply this to whatever area of life you want to apply it to. If you desire to be a good cook, study a good cook. You desire to be the best marketer, study the best marketer. When I first started out in business, I had no idea what I was doing. Even though everybody and their mother would tell you, oh, you got talent, you got this, you got that. They're the last people to support you. So be careful with everyone who pushes you to a level of greatness, because they'll be the last one to buy the ticket. They'll be the last one to buy the book. They'll be the last one to show up at your conference. But you have to know within yourself, because you've studied the master in a sense, or you've studied the person who exhilarates where you're trying to go. When I first started doing this magazine thing, I had no idea what I was doing. It was 25 pages and that was it. But I studied someone who worked for Essence, and I asked her 1,000 questions, and I incorporated awesome authors and contributors to help make it what it is. And it's only 6 months old, but I'm still studying. I go in the store and I'll buy magazines that I want my magazine to look like, or I want the content to reflect. And because of that, I'm still studying. So whatever it is that you desire to do, and even if, like I said, even if this is not about business, this is about you personally. If you desire to be a better mom, read about a better mom. Find the best mom example that you know. If you desire to enhance your singing, follow a singer, or anything that you want to do, it is possible, but you have to put yourself in a seat to be taught. And that is what the S of resilient reflects. The I is invest. Now, I know what you're thinking, like, okay, well, I have life, I have bills, I have this, I have that. That is true. And regardless of what you believe in, you actually have enough money to do what you need to do. You just have to make it do what it does. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to invest in my business before I invest in anything else. Now, I will make sure that my responsibilities are met, but a lot of people say, oh, just last year, I just bought me a new vehicle. And I only bought that new vehicle because my wedding was canceled. So I felt like, well, you know what? I was going to blow this money on a wedding anyway. Why don't I get me a new vehicle? But I was so comfortable in driving my 7-year-old car that was paid for because all of my money was going to my businesses. Every last dime was going into perfecting it. And I'm not saying that you have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but whatever it is that you're desiring to do, put some effort towards it. If you're going to have a website where you're selling product, put energy and effort into that website. If you're going to have a television show, put energy and effort into that website. Investment is not always financial. Investment is time. You can't spend 2 hours on television catching up on your latest stories and spend 30 minutes on something that has your name attached to it or something that can bring you residual income or anything like that. So always invest. And the key to investing is having the right people around you who are going to hold you accountable to that. But I'll talk more about that later. The L in resilient is learning. Learn to do things a different way. 2020 taught everybody how to pivot to online, figure out Zoom, figure out Microsoft Suite, figure out everything. FaceTime. I mean, I saw people who said, I'll never get an iPhone, get one, just because 2020 taught us how to pivot. But just because we learned how to do it last year doesn't mean that when life goes back to whatever normal looks like, that we just put that to the back burner. That may be the new way of doing things. We're actually enjoying our lunch wherever we are right now, the privacy of our homes or wherever we are, and we're still looking at each other. That's the innovative way of thinking, and that came through learning. We have to learn from each other, knowing our strengths, knowing the areas that we can have improvement on. I have an awesome business coach. I won't embarrass her, but she is awesome. And she helped me in areas that I thought I knew, but I did not know that. And simply because we don't know everything. We don't know everything. We oversimplify stuff and say, I don't want to ask for help. But being resilient is not about being weak. If you are not strong in a certain area, by all means, find the person who is strength. That goes back to that S in study. The second I is implement. So you're ready, you're eager, you studied, you've invested, you've learned, but then you say, not this year, I'll do it next year. Or you say, oh, I'll start next month. Or you keep putting it off. You keep putting it off. And so when you start putting it off, that implementation, it dies out. And before you know it, you say, well, I thought you said you were going to start this business last year. Or I thought you said, you were going to do more motivational speaking. It starts to die out because you're no longer interested. So whenever you become interested, whatever it is, even if you have 2 followers, 2 friends, 2 likes, implement it anyway, because somebody is always watching. I never get caught up in the likes of social media because that's what it's supposed to do. And as a matter of fact, to be honest, we all chose our friends on social media. So we chose them in a time where we were not business minded, where we were not, trying to be great and all of this. Some of us have had our college friends, so they don't know this new you. And so you can't expect them to like this new you, but you continue to share this new you because a new person is coming along. A new person is going to come and see what you're doing and gravitate to that new you. And you don't have to explain the old you to the new people because they met you in the 2020. So all my 2020 friends, I say, oh, okay, I don't have to explain 1997 to them because they didn't meet me in that era. And that's the same way you are. When you're implementing something new, you don't focus on, well, I just shared that yesterday and only 2 people respond. You've reached 2 people. And those 2 people are going to reach 2 people and those 2 people, and it's going to grow from that dynamic. Don't worry about the lateral moves. Just focus on the upward mobility of what's to come. I've been in business for 7 years. This is the first year that some people have met me and they think, oh, wow, your career just took off. And I'm like, no, I've been at this for 7 years. So that's my point, that if it doesn't catch fire today, that doesn't mean that that little smoke and that soot is not going to still sit there and catch fire tomorrow. The E is for eliminate. Eliminate is my favorite because that means eliminate everything that is not tied to your dream, your destiny, your plan, to you being resilient. And the fact that the meaning of being resilient, it stands for overcoming barriers. A barrier can be negativity. And if you surround yourself by the can't do, it won't happen, no one has ever done that before, you're the first person in the family, those dots, then you won't be resilient. Being resilient means showing them that you said this couldn't happen, but it is happening. Not I made it happen, it is happening. Or you told me it was impossible, but I made it possible. however you choose to look at that, eliminate the naysayers, eliminate the negativity. Even if they share your last name, everyone doesn't intend to be negative. And you have to look at it like, well, they didn't intend to hurt my feelings, but if it did, separate yourself. I have people who I've been friends with for years that as of 2020, I replaced them in my phone as scam likely. I don't dislove them. I don't dislike them. But for where I am at this moment, I have to put them on the side until I'm stronger as a person to be able to coexist with that negativity. I have to become stronger as a person. Once I get to that point where the water just rolls off my back like a duck, then yeah, I can unscam likely them, put their name back in, and it won't bother me to answer because I'll know what the outcome is going to be on the other end. The end means to never give up. I don't care what. Never give up. I was sharing earlier, 2013 was my 2020. 2013 was my pandemic. I got a divorce, single mom of a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I lost my dad and I lost my job all in the same year. And you talk about borderline mental institution, but I had to tell myself, I'm not the first single mother. I'm not the first woman to get a divorce, and I'm definitely not the first person to lose my job. Now, to lose the same job 3 times at the same company, I might be the first. However, life happens. And I had to tell myself then that, am I going to sit there and allow life to happen? Or am I going to put my big girl antics on and just make it happen? Here we are 7 years later, I'm embarking on a teenager next week. And so I didn't get there alone, but I didn't get there being afraid. So that's where that resiliency comes in. Never give up. If you start a business, specifically to my business owners, you start a business and it's not taking off like you desire it to do not close up shop. Do not say, I can't do this anymore, because that is the test. The test is to see if you're going to weather the storm despite the support. The test is to see that. I'm not everyone's favorite. There's some people who probably think, oh my God, every day she's posting something. This is just overkill. I'm not posting it for that person. I'm posting it for the 2013 Teia. I'm posting it for the single mother. I'm posting it for someone who's just starting out in business. I'm posting it for someone who just lost their job. I'm posting it for someone who has lost a parent or a loved one. That is who that is for. And lastly, the T is for teach. And it's a segue into what I just said, into never giving up. The goal of being resilient and the goal of withstanding life is to teach someone else. So my goal, even in this message today, is to give you those definitions, or give you those answers to those letters so that you can teach somebody else. It's not about just me being resilient. I don't mind being the launch pad for anybody. If you want to start your business, if you want to shoulder the crown, if you want to throw a pity pot, I will be that launch pad. But after I listen, then we have to leap. So after I hear everything you said, then we got to move forward. Then we got to grow. Then we got to do what needs to be done. So the teaching part is to go back and teach someone else. It's a lot of women on here today because at some point of your life, I have connected with you on some level, whether it was something I said, something I've done, someone else said I did something, but that is the teachable moment. And so now the charge is on you. When you get off, when you finish biting your sandwich for lunch, if you actually eat lunch or whatever it is you're doing, by the end of the day, your charge is to go teach someone else. And you don't have to say Teia said. You can just say, I know as a woman that I've been ready, I've been eager, I've been studying, I have invested in myself, I consistently learn, I implement new things, I eliminate a negativity, I never give up. You can say that. You don't have to quote me on that. That is the definition of resilient to me. So I hope that in using that definition for myself, that it helps you all and propel you to the next level. And I just really appreciate having that opportunity to share that with you.
Time for Q&A then?
Yes.
Lots of good time for Q&A, which is the intention here. So everyone can, if you want to come off mute, or I'll be moderating the chat. If someone wants to just type it, that's fine too. but feel free to chime in and ask your questions.
I have a question. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Great presentation, Teia. I took loads of notes. Question for you. You said something that was very pivotal. You even in posting now, you said you post for the 2013 version of Teia. And I love that because it's easy for people to judge you in your current season, but the realness of what you had to experience was the realest of the real. My question for you is, back then, did you have any idea that you were being seeded for what was to come in your life and the movement you were to start with the resiliency movement? Did you have any inkling that would probably happen?
Well, to be honest, I always knew that I was going to be doing something to help people. So my background is in healthcare. I've always been in long-term care, skilled nursing home, memory care. So I knew that I'm supposed to be doing something to help people. Where it transitioned from the Ebony and Ivory aspect of helping people grow business to the resilient piece was it's easy to help people start their business, but I had to figure out how to help them start themselves. And I could only speak from a place that I had been in. And so when I have people say, even to this day, when do you sleep? And I'm like, wow, I probably get more sleep at night than you do. I look busy, but I'm not busy because I look productive because I want to keep the wheels turning. But at the end of the day, when you ask me a real question of, when do you rest? When do you sleep? I have a husband. I have 2 children. I have a full-time job. Even though it's a contract position, I still am responsible and obligated for that. But I do not, and this is a quote from my mentor, Martha Cooper Hudson, I do not build anything for someone else's last name before I build for my own. And so Teia's business is handled first. And how I knew that narrative needed to be painted is because I would watch so many people go hard for everyone else. And they would get completely exhausted when it came to themselves. At the end of the day, the company that I was laid off for, I'd made them $1.2 million in Medicare dollars. And they laid me off because I had a bad quarter. And I'm like, well, what about the 1.2 that you just have? Y'all can't just move some of that money over. But the point that they showed me was, as long as you're good, we're good. And so that's when I knew it was time for me to pivot and shift to knowing that I'm going to be good regardless. And I have not made what I've made for them, but it doesn't matter because I have the substance for myself that I made for them. So I guess if that answers your question, that's when I knew it was something that I was always supposed to do.
A lot of people saying you had a very inspiring and educational presentation, awesome presentation. I do have a question. So you talked about 2013 being your 2020. I have a very similar situation in 2020. Lost my dad in 2020. I'm a single mom. And I think you just hit a point where you're like, okay, like nothing else bad it can't get any worse. What was I know you said 2013 was the year, but was there just a moment in time and all of that where you finally said maybe it was losing the job, like you just said, but was it that you said it doesn't matter what anybody says to me, I'm going to keep going? Because my biggest thing still is I listen so much to what people say, and that still is a hindrance for me. I've had so many side hustles for years, and I never want to put myself out there because it's very much I don't know, you're so worried about what you have to say, if that makes sense.
Well, and this is not to segue because, I realize people are at lunch, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I am very strong in my faith. And so I realized that it's not about me. So I was going through things because I was supposed to be the light for someone else. I went through losing my dad so that when someone else calls me and say they lost their father, I have the right words to say. And so going through what I went through, if it had not been for my pastor at the time telling me, this is not how the story ends. This is how it's supposed to be. Reading, constantly getting into my word and my faith, and knowing that there is no way I can wait and die and go to heaven for a street made of gold and just live like whatever on earth. I knew that was impossible. So in my mindset, I kept reflecting on certain scriptures, and I would always say, if he's telling Jeremiah that he knows his plans, then, just plug my name in there, because Jeremiah was the person at the time. But let's fast forward to 1981 when Teia came on the scene. So God, really, you meant to take Jeremiah's name out, put Teia name in. And that's how I go through things like, okay, it's not about me. I'm not going through this for myself. And it's a lot, but I have a personal mantra that I say every single day. It's enough to make me cry, but not enough to make me quit. And so no matter what, I face that giant every single day. I put on my boxing gloves and I face that giant every single day. And it can be anything. And I'm not saying that stuff does not weaken me. I mean, there are some days I have to phone a friend or call or do something for some strength. But at the end of the day, what I project is that it's going to be okay. So my whole goal and my whole focus is to show people it's going to be okay. If I showed every defeat, someone would never get started, because they'd be like, you know what? She has just been through enough. I don't even want to begin. And so, like you said, you have a lot of things that you're good at, but you have to, it will get to a point where you say, I just have to do it. I was in the Salvation Army waiting on assistance, and I saw a mother walk by with a boy and a girl. And here I am sitting there with a boy and a girl. And I said at that moment, whatever I have to do, if I have to be a dog catcher, I'm going to get my makeup done. I'm going to get me a fly outfit, and I'm going to go catch some dogs. Because at the end of the day, my strength is made in my weakness. I'm going to have to do what I have to do to take care of my children. And in the process of doing what I had to do to take care of my kids, I ended up taking care of myself. Because if I was a single person with no kids going through that struggle, I wouldn't see the light like I see it now, because I would have no need to. There would always be a bailout plan. But losing my dad was the type of father that I could ride from my house to his house on E and pass every gas station just to get to him, for him to say, I'll take your car and fill it up. So at that moment, I felt like God took him to make me stand on my own. I felt like God took my husband to make me stand on my own. And even in losing a child, I felt like that losing that child was to help me stand on my own. Everything that we go through is to help us become better. We don't see it at the time because we're human. And we're like, why do I have to take this L? Why do I have to get cancer? Why do I have to lose my job? Why do my kids have to be crazy? Why? But instead of asking why, I just say when. Like, when is it going to be over? When is it going to be my turn? And sometimes in it being your turn, it's not necessarily your time. I'm not doing anything different in 2020 that I was doing in 2013. It just wasn't my time. And I had to own that. And even in owning that, now it just seems like everything just keeps happening. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. But people don't realize that this is a seed that was planted 7 years ago. So of course there should be a tree. Of course there should be some fruit. Of course we should be eating from what was planted 7 years ago. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Thank you. I have another one, but I want to see if anybody else has questions first.
I do have a quick question, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I apologize, my video's off. I am actually eating lunch and nobody wants to see that. So I'm just keeping it up right now.
It's okay.
Thank you for that presentation. My name is Asia. I just followed you on Instagram. So I'll be one of the 2 people liking all the stuff, but I'm sure after this, there'll be so many more. I wanted to know, what are some like daily ritual things that you do to keep yourself feeling grounded, prepared for whatever the day is going to throw at you? And also on the flip side, when a situation does arise where it kind of knocks you off your feet for a bit, what do you do to come out of it?
Well, I actually, every single morning when I wake up, aside from saying my prayers, I just, talk to myself in the mirror or out of the mirror. And I just tell myself, no matter what, I'm going to have a good day. And I actually didn't make that up. I have a friend, Tiffany, and she's on here. Tiffany taught me to do that. She does this self thing where we used to record ourselves and send it out to our friends. And aside from that, I just know that we control the day. You know, if you don't die tonight, you have won the day. And I hate to put it in those terms, but we get so bogged down in everything. I'm a news watcher. And I don't watch the news for the negativity. I watch the news to keep me in perspective. So when I watch the news at 11 o'clock at night, that reminds me that whatever I had going on that day, it doesn't trump what somebody else just had going on, or it doesn't trump 500,000 deaths in COVID. So let's prepare for tomorrow. When an obstacle does come up, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't always hit everything with positivity. So that's why it's important to have people around you who are strengths. And you have to know people's strength, because you can't make your friend of 30 years your prayer partner. Just because, oh, you've known me 30 years and we know everything about each other, that may not be that person's strength. Sometimes you are the go-to person for your friends, or sometimes you are the strongest person of your friends, but you have to know who you can go to for what. And I mentioned that in the learning piece because Miss Baylor, Victoria Baylor, is my coach. And while I may project that, oh, I know everything about being resilient and I know everything about business and marketing, there were some things about Teia that I had no idea about. And so I had to seek people like her to help me figure out who I was, so that what I was projecting wasn't a lie. Because sometimes it's easy to cut these cameras off and go back to your pillow crying, or go back to whatever it was that had you feeling the way that you're feeling, because we put on a facade. We fix ourselves up and we make ourselves look the part. And that's one guilty thing that we do as women. We're so strong. We have so many roles. We play so many positions that we don't get to really express how we feel. If a woman gets sick or a mom gets sick, the whole house is going to get sick. And not so much because they don't know how to function, but because her role never stops. And so she's spreading the sickness while being who she is. And so what I'm essentially saying to you is, you have to tell yourself every day, you're great. And so when you walk out that door, if no one tells you that from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., it doesn't take away the fact that you're great. My dad used to tell me every day that I was pretty. And he didn't tell me that to, put me on some Hillary Banks stuff, but I had big teeth, I had big eyes, I had big lips. You would have thought you was looking at Red Riding Hood grandma. But he told me that so that when I went to school, whatever negativity came behind those flaws that I thought I had, it didn't hurt my feelings. So tell yourself every day the positivity. Write yourself notes. I send myself flowers sometimes. I write myself emails and send it to myself from myself. And I don't think that's weird or crazy. I have to be my first cheerleader before I can depend on social media, before I can depend on somebody to ride by and see a billboard. Any of those things, I am my first cheerleader. And once you become your first cheerleader, it wouldn't matter whether you had 1 or 1,000, you would be fine. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I do have another question, and this is I don't think I really got at it in my original question, but I think, can you talk about, you launched your business or started working towards your endeavors in around 2013 after you had these really negative experiences. Mm-hmm. Throughout the whole process, you've hit these challenges, right? Like you had to have. That's what the business world is like. Like you're going to have things pop up that are out of your control. And obviously we've got an understanding of how you get through that. But I'm curious, was there do you have a story about one instance that you wouldn't mind sharing of negativity that you experienced, further down the line, and you were like, I don't know if my business is going to make it? Right. Is there one instant like that? Maybe it was like people being negative towards you, or maybe it was like you weren't seeing the return on the investment of your time or your money. I'm just curious.
Well, I will say it happened twofold. And this is why I'm really harping on you all today to establish your own identity outside of someone else. And so when I first started my business, I had a partner. It was Ebony and Ivory. That was the whole point. But I did so much of it by myself. And, she had good reasons as to why she couldn't continue. But in that moment, I felt like we're just starting and now we're failing, because people were looking for two people and they were looking for the play on the names. And now that no longer exists. And then fast forward, I would make certain deals and certain investments with certain people. And when they were no longer a part of my life or no longer attached to that, I felt like they were going to take everyone that came with them. And even down to current, and this is just being transparent, being married to someone who society feels as, oh, that's a great job and he makes a lot of money. I don't really get the credit now for doing things on my own. Everything is associated with, oh, well, she's only doing that because she's married to a longshoreman. And I'm thinking, wow, and it hurts, because as a woman, the last thing you want is to feel as though you did not contribute to your own level of success. People have no idea the amount of time and energy and effort I put into paying things off that didn't have my name on them personally, but I was attached to it. So it fell on me, or they had no idea how hard it was to start over. And so when I finally get to a place where I can afford to do certain things, to have that contributed to being married to a certain person or being a part of a certain era, it's offensive. But you have to decide which battles you're going to show up for. And if I fought everything that came my way, I wouldn't even be here today, because I would be so stressed out. I wouldn't know what to say to you all, because it wouldn't be positive. It wouldn't be resilience. It would be the fact that I had to fight. I put on those gloves every day, as I said, but I don't get in the ring with everybody, and I don't get in the ring with everything, because sometimes you just gotta let 1 + 1 be 5. You just gotta say, you know what, you're right, and leave it at that. The best thing that you could ever do is to show someone success. And that is why you'll never see anything negative on my post, unless my favorite sports team loses or, something like that. But nothing negative towards who I am, what I stand for, because I know that's what people come for. I know people are looking to see, I told you so-and-so wasn't so. I know that. And because I know that, I prepare for that every day. If that means I have to take a slow pause before I respond, that is what I have to do, because I have to think about what's to lose. I have to think about the 2 kids in the Salvation Army. And if you don't have a story in your mind that you can revert back to that will keep you going, find one. Because I promise you, that is how you will matriculate through life and be successful. Because every time opposition comes up, you think about that one moment where you could have lost it all. And the fact that you didn't lose it then, you're not willing to lose it now.
Great. We have a question in the chat too. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead. It's from Miss Thornton here. She says, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I would like to improve on my discipline, time management, stress management, and etc. before launching. How do you balance everything out?
Well, believe it or not, thanks to some very cool apps, I program all my posts on Sundays. So, after I do my online church, I just sit down in a chair and I program everything for the week, unless it's something that happened during the week and I want to share it. But other than that, I don't get bogged down in trying to be great. And what I mean by that is you have to go at the level that you're comfortable with going. There's a reason why the track and field sport has sprinters, they have marathon runners, they have people who do shot put, they have hurdlers, because we're all not supposed to be doing the same thing. You go at your pace and people will adapt to your pace. I have people who are used to me posting every day. If I say, I'm going off for Lent, I have 10 or 12 messages. Are you okay? Is everything okay? What's happening? Because they have become accustomed to seeing something that I share. But if you're not that person, don't feel, you control the narrative of your business. You control that. You control what it looks like, how it's going to look, what is going to be said, what people are going to feel when you control that. It's not a sprint. It's your personal business marathon. And how I balance it is just as I told you earlier, nothing comes before it. So I will make sure that my kids eat. I will make sure that my husband eat. I will fulfill my in-home responsibilities. But instead of, I shared with a friend yesterday, I have to TiVo My Young and the Restless because I can't watch it when it comes out, but I am going on 30-year faithful watcher. So I have to TiVo those things, but I don't sit down and watch an hour of television before I put an hour into my businesses. So you control that. And once it becomes your baby, my goodness, someone would have to pull you away from it. It's like taking your child to daycare for the first time. Someone will have to say, it's okay, go ahead, we got this, because you'll get so wrapped up into it that you'll find the time. 2:00 in the morning, you'll find the time. 10 o'clock, you'll find the time. Restroom break on your job, you take your phone with you and find the time. You will find the time to do exactly what you want to do.
Anybody have any other questions? Let's see, making sure nobody's coming off mute. If you do have questions, is there a way, what's the best way to contact you? Is it connecting with you on LinkedIn or following you on social media? If people want to connect with you later?
Yes, so on social media, you can follow Teia Acker Resilient. That page is dedicated to platforms just like this and us. Or some people are already following me on social media on my personal page, which is fine. It's all the same, very transparent, and it's easier to be that way. But you can also email me, info@teiaacker.com, or you can go to teiaacker.com and drop in the chat or anything of that nature. I'm very reachable. So I know it looks like I'm not, but I'm very reachable. You can call 1-877-BE-RESILIENT, and we can talk all day long if you want to. Whatever is convenient for you and to get your questions answered. I don't mind sharing information that I know. I didn't have a lot of people sharing things that they knew when I was coming up in the business world per se. So I am adamant about sharing what I know. If it's an app that I know will simplify things for someone, I will share that app. It's no hidden secrets or anything with me because I want everybody to be great. Leaders make leaders. And so there's no sense in keeping everything to yourself because you can't do it all.
Got it. Okay, we do have 3 more questions in that time that you were saying that.
Okay.
People ask questions. So Asia asks, can you explain more about exactly what your businesses are, your different businesses?
Okay, so the first business, my oldest baby, which will be 8 years old, July 25th, is Ebony and Ivory Professional Services. And Ebony and Ivory was started to help be the launch pad for small businesses. The tagline is let us help you get noticed. And the premise of that is to help get you exposed to different markets and different things of that nature. It actually helped me because I would not be in Houston and all these different other places if I didn't catapult myself. So I teach small businesses how to catapult themselves past their area code. We all fight to gain ground in our area code, but our country code is what we need to be trying to gain ground in. The other business is Teia Acker Resilient. I focus on helping women find their resiliency, sharing my story in hopes that they will share theirs. If you go to the website, teiaacker.com, you will see other women who have shared their resilient stories, how they've overcome whatever. And as a mark to that, I launched the Resilient magazine in June, and that magazine caters to women. It talks about resilient women, specifically African-American women, but it talks about women who have overcome whatever, and they're making milestones. And the premise of that magazine was, you know, we all have seen Oprah's magazine, Ebony, Essence, but sometimes they make you feel as though you have to be a celebrity to be recognized. And so the purpose of my magazine was to take everyday women, just like myself, who are doing exceptional things, and highlight that, and let other people read their stories and make them feel just as significant as the celebrities and the other women who are in those other magazines. By no means is it competition, but we can never have enough information about us. So that is the premise of that. And then I'm a co-owner of Moore Books with my husband, James Moore. And it's an online bookstore. We're thinking about doing a brick and mortar in September of 2021. But right now it's an online bookstore where any book that you would like to read, any book that's coming out, new features, old releases, we have it. If it's not there, if you see something that you want and we don't have it, by all means, there's a drop box where you can put that in there and we will get it shipped out to you. And that's just about all the businesses that I can think of.
Cool. Miss Bridges says, subscribe to the magazine. You will love it. And she also had a question. She said, well, I think you kind of spoke on, you offer mentorship coaching, but what's the process for finding a mentor? What do you recommend for finding a mentor? I know you mentioned Victoria as your coach. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
Well, believe it or not, it came about, I'm not going to really say by word of mouth. I watched Victoria and I watched the clientele that she had. And so that really, sometimes that speaks for you. You know, sometimes we go for quantity, but 100 pennies is still equal. You know, you can have 100 pennies over here and still have the same amount over here. It doesn't take away just because you're looking at volume. And that's what we're guilty of. We're always looking at volume and we associate volume with success. Quality over quantity all the time. And I have more than one mentor. So Victoria is my coach. So she coaches me to go in the right direction, business-wise and personal-wise. Mentorship is the person who's actually in the area that I'm trying to go in, and I follow that person. So I have a mentor for the educational side. I have a mentor for the spiritual side. You can have more than one. You have to find people who are going in the direction that you want to go into, and you reach out to them and say, hey, I need help. And when you're asking for help, you have to be willing to be helped. Sometimes we want to put the brakes on. And I was guilty of that. When I first started with my coaching with Victoria, I'm like, no, we're not talking about this. We're just going to talk about this. And she would remind me, okay, well, in order for us to get to that, we have to talk about this. And so in talking about that, it helped me get to this. So you just have to have an open mind about what it is you want to do. You can't limit yourself and you can't eliminate the transparency if you want to grow. You have that, your mentor should be the one person that you're honest with, even if you're not honest with yourself.
Okay. Another question. Will you speak on narrowing down ideas and refining your business? Ivory says, it feels like I have so much I want to accomplish all at once.
Okay. So with that, make the main thing the main thing. So when I first started Ebony and Ivory Professional Services, I had 3 targets: resumes, websites, public speaking. I can do so many things, but those were the 3 things that I wanted to highlight because that is the traction that I wanted to draw to my website. Once people got to the website, they're like, oh, I didn't know you did step and repeats. Oh, I didn't know you did retractable banners. I didn't advertise those things because sometimes if you show everything, people get scared. They're like, wait, there's no way that you can be the baker, the singer, you're a one-stop wedding. You are the programmer, you make the programs, then you sing, then you're a minister, you officiate the wedding too. They get scared. So the best thing you can do is find 3 things that you are the strongest in, that when it comes to competition, you will win this in that aspect, and you sell those 3 things. I did not start off selling t-shirts and cups and tumblers and stuff. I put that stuff in my store. I sold resiliency, and I sold resiliency through transparency. And when people said, oh man, I can relate to her. I'm glad you can relate to me. Now let's relate to this t-shirt, because not only am I resilient, so are you. And I didn't put on the shirt, Teia Acker is resilient. I put, I am resilient, so that whoever wore that shirt, they were representing themselves, not necessarily me. I didn't put myself on the cover of every issue of the magazine because it was not about me. I wanted to promote women and promote the good things that women were doing. So to answer your question, if you narrow it down to 3 things that you can do well, everyone will see the other things that you can do after they establish that relationship with you. But if you give them too much too soon, not only will you inundate them, but you'll inundate yourself, because now you're going to have to show this and showcase that, and you're going to have to keep up. Let people ask you, is there anything else you do for small businesses? I'm glad you asked. Let them seek to figure out what you do versus you giving them everything that you do at one time. For example, when you go to a buffet, regardless of how good everything looks, you don't put it all on your plate. Because when you get back, you're like, I'm not gonna eat all this, especially if you just kept throwing it on there and piling it on there. That's how it has to be in business. Small pieces will eventually make the big puzzle. Just keep putting it together and it will eventually complete the puzzle.